A Plaguelands Media production.
Hey everyone, this is Hugh from Plaguelands Media bringing you another book review today, so cheers. Today I'm looking at a book that has been on my radar for a little bit now, and I just finally got around to reading it. And that is Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Now, this is the first novel I've read from this author, but it is certainly not the only novel I have of theirs. I also have Malibu Rising, which I look forward to reading and kind of bringing to you. Now, for those of you that don't know, Daisy Jones and the Six is a very interesting novel in that it's written as kind of epistolary fiction. So traditionally, epistolary fiction is a story that's told through a series of letters. The earliest one that I have read was Dangerous Liaisons, written by Lacrosse in, I believe, 1782. There's some very famous movies based on that. The most pop culture-ish, of course, being Cruel Intentions. This, however, while it is epistolary fiction, it's done in the form of interviews. We have the story coming out through an interviewer talking to a group of band members, basically Daisy Jones and members of the band The Six. And the story kind of is told over a series of years. We get Daisy Jones's early years, growing up, and then we get the story of the band The Six, which was previously known as the Dunn Brothers, and ultimately it leads to why this band broke up after they had this huge success with one of their albums and concert tours and whatnot. Now, at heart, you could say it is a romance novel. However, I would disagree with that. It is a novel about addiction. It is a novel about want. And I'm going to say this right now. This would be in my top 20 novels of all time, possibly a top 10. I haven't read many books that are done in this kind of interview style. The last one I did read was a while ago, and that was Chuck Palahniuk's novel Rant, which I will reread and review because it is such a fucking great time. So for me, this book was interesting. It basically tells the story of the rock and roll lifestyle in the 70s and this implosion that happens when a band hits this high point, and then it's not that they can't deal with it, they can, but it just touches a lot of raw nerves in the band members themselves, in the people involved, in the family members of band members. So it's quite kind of heartbreaking towards the end, but it's not, in that you get this sense of closure, but the story hasn't ended. It's really bizarre. I absolutely love the fact that the author has clearly written different voices for all of the band members. You've got Daisy Jones, her best friend, wow, I can't even remember. Simone, there we go. Her best friend Simone. You've got the Dunn brothers, Billy and Graham. You've got the drummer Warren. Eddie, Camilla, all of these, Pete, all of these kind of people, Karen, the keyboardist. You even get interviews with like producers and the sound mixing people in the studio, and all of these kind of factors leading up to why this band basically broke up after one of their best concerts. I highly recommend you go and read this. If you don't feel like reading it, there is an Amazon Prime series. It runs for 10 episodes. I haven't watched it. I intentionally didn't watch it because I wanted to read the book first. But from what I've heard and what I've read, it does a very good job capturing the spirit of Daisy Jones and the Six. So I'm not going to spoil everything. I'm going to go through the story a little bit, but this really kind of needs to be read because there are nuances between the characters that I really just cannot bring through in any review. I did short of sitting down and reading this novel directly to the camera. So if you don't want any of that, if you want to go and experience the book or the Amazon special, the Amazon series for yourself, then by all means do that. But if you do want to find out why Daisy Jones and the Six broke up after their concert in 1979 at the Whiskey, then stick around for the next episode of
Read a fucking book. Read a fucking book. Read a fucking book. People.
Okay. I will start by saying that there are a lot of references in this book to bands and to music that I honestly didn't get. That's perfectly fine. If you're into music from the 1970s, the popular bands and whatnot, then you're going to enjoy this quite a bit. That is not to say that I didn't enjoy it. I fucking love this book. You got that from the intro. The book starts with a little bit of background about Daisy Jones. We find out through a series of interviews that Daisy Jones was the daughter of an artist and a model, and she's an only child, and from a very early age, like her parents really just let her do what she wanted. They didn't give a shit. So she went out cruising the strip and whatnot, and ended up kind of getting into this the band scene with drinking and meeting guys and things like that. We learn about her first sexual encounter and all of this kind of stuff about how she was kind of neglected as a child, but it gave her some independence, which shines through her character during the entire duration of this novel. She meets this, when she's about 14 or 15, she meets this 19-year-old called Simone, who kind of takes her under her wing, becomes her best friend. Simone is a singer that's trying to make it on the scene itself. And we get a little bit about their ups and downs, but they remain friends for the entire duration of this story, this tale. The story then moves over to the Dunn brothers. These are Billy and Graham Dunn, who are being raised by their mother because their father has left, and they start learning or teaching themselves guitar, and then they form a band, and then they kind of get other people to come into this band, and this is where we meet this guy called Chuck, who unfortunately was drafted into the war and was killed in Cambodia. And we get Eddie, Pete, Karen, Warren, and then they form this band called the Dunn Brothers. The band starts to get a little bit of traction, and it starts to get a little bit big, and they decide to change the name because the Dunn brothers is focusing on Billy and Graham, Billy being kind of like the lead singer, Graham being the guitarist. And so they change the name to the Six because there's 6 members, and everyone kind of likes that. And then they get kind of bigger and bigger and bigger, and they'll record their first album. We flip back to Daisy. Daisy, Simona's kind of pushing Daisy to sing because Daisy's got this fantastic voice. Daisy also writes her own songs, and we discover that through her many relationships with kind of people that have been in bands, they've been stealing her work. She vows to never kind of do that again. When she finally gets a record deal, they don't like any of the songs she's written. They say they're half finished and they want her to sing other people's songs. She says no. So they get some people in to kind of push her in the right direction. This guy called Teddy Price, who is consequently also working for the Six. She finally agrees to record this album, and it's a minor hit. In the meantime, we see that the Dunn brothers, or the Six as they are now called, Billy is spiraling out of control. Now, Billy has met the love of his life, this woman called Camilla, and has kind of toned his actions down a lot until he discovers that Camilla is pregnant. They get married very, very quickly. And while on tour, Billy, who is kind of freaked out about being a father because his father had left, just goes completely nuts with drugs and booze and women. And eventually Camilla finds this out and gives him an ultimatum. She says, you can have up until the time the baby is due to do whatever you want, and then you're a father, and then you're part of a family. We get a whole lot of Camilla basically forgiving him and having faith in him that he will do the right thing because she knows Billy so well. So Billy, after this huge downward spiral, is taken and put into rehab. He's not there for the birth of his daughter, Julia. And ultimately, when he comes out of rehab, he meets his daughter for the first time, and that's it. Like, he is committed 100% to his family. He stops the drugs. He stops the booze. He still continues the music, but while everyone's out partying, he just goes back to his hotel room and it's all good. They start working on an album called Aurora, and all the songs are about Camilla, and like Billy is writing these songs about his wife, and they're all kind of saccharine and sweet. And the producer says, look, you need to make one of these songs a duet. So they get Daisy Jones in to sing with Billy, and the chemistry is there, and it's kind of automatic that this song is going to be a fucking hit. However, Daisy changes the lyrics to the song, and Billy flips the fuck out. So there's tension between the two of them, although they do work really well together. They end up going to this beach house and just writing a bunch of songs together, and you know that they're on par with each other. They are kind of connecting creatively, And Camilla doesn't kind of worry about this. She has faith in Billy. Billy doesn't act on any feelings or anything like that. Like, it's almost like he's not interested in Daisy, but he is, because as we know from earlier in the book, Daisy is apparently gorgeous, and she's a head turner, and everybody loves her. So we have that kind of happening. At the same time, some of the band members are getting a little bit pissed off with Billy, especially Eddie, who was Chuck's brother. Chuck was the guy that died in Cambodia. And Graham and Karen have started a relationship. They're keeping it secret. And this kind of goes on. Billy can't be around Daisy because Daisy is like into drugs and booze and all of that. And on one of their breaks, Daisy goes off to Italy and marries this guy called Niccolo, who is apparently some kind of prince or whatever. Niccolo is an instigator. He keeps pushing Daisy to do drugs and to do booze. Billy is getting more and more pissed off with the way things are kind of headed. And ultimately, it kind of all comes to a head when Daisy leaves Niccolo and says, look, this is it, we're done. All because he thinks she OD'd, and instead of getting help, he just left her in a bathtub in a hotel room with cold water running, hoping she would wake up. And she realizes he doesn't fucking care about me. He just cares about the money that I'm bringing in, because the Daisy Jones and the Six are kind of skyrocketing now. The Six perform on Saturday Night Live, and it's obvious from the second song that there is a spark between Billy and Daisy, and Camilla, who's at home with the children. Now they also have other kids, sees this, and while she still trusts Billy, she doesn't quite trust Daisy. So after this particularly kind of tense show, we find out that Karen is pregnant with Graham's child. Graham wants to keep it. Karen wants to have an abortion. So there's tension there. Eddie is still getting pissed off. Warren is just doing his own thing. Pete is going to get married and wants to leave the band. And everything is kind of spiraling to a head. And eventually, Billy kind of relapses, only by drinking one glass of tequila, but it's still, when you've gone through rehab and you're dealing with sobriety, that's still kind of a big thing. And Daisy goes out and gets fucking wrecked and comes back to find Camilla and the eldest daughter, Julia, in the hallway of the hotel room, and Camilla confronts Daisy with Julia. We actually find out that Julie is the one conducting these interviews with all the band members, because her and Daisy share this memory of what Camilla said to Daisy that night. Basically, I know Billy loves you, but you will never have him. He belongs to me. It's not a negative talk. It's not like, stay the fuck away from him, bitch, or fuck you. It's not any of that shit. It's just Camilla telling Daisy how it is. And that's when Daisy quits the band. And Julia kind of gives her side of it because she remembers that conversation. And so this is when kind of the band splits up. And we find out that Camilla, who was interviewed in the book, didn't survive. So her daughter basically continues these interviews, but she passed away surrounded by Billy and her family, so it wasn't sad. And then one moment. We find out that she left a note. Didn't think this would choke me up. Why is this choking me up? She left a note for her daughters encouraging them to get Billy to contact Daisy, because they have not spoken to each other in many, many years. The book also ends with all of the songs on their best-selling album. So you get all of the 10 songs on their album. You get all of the lyrics, because the lyrics are mentioned in the book, but they're not really they don't really go into detail. We don't know if Billy contacts Daisy. We don't know where it's going. That's up to us. Now, this book was recommended by Reese Witherspoon, who said she couldn't put it down. We get a lot of great recommendations, and we get her, I believe it was her first novel, was The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, which I think I still have it somewhere. Just an amazing read. Something completely out of my wheelhouse. I honestly have no idea why I purchased this one. If you go back and look on this channel, it's primarily horror and fantasy by the same authors. But this really surprised me. Now, when I finish a book, I put it on my Books Read in 2024 list, put it aside to review on the channel, and then I have a really hard time finding another book to read. And I'd already picked a book that I was going to read, and I was leaving for work, and I saw just this bit of purple here sticking out on the shelf, and I picked it up and went, okay, I'll switch books and I'll read this one. And I'm so fucking glad I did. So well written. The characters are believable. They're well-rounded. They have flaws. They have strengths. They are open. You get the same story, but from different perspectives, which changes it a little bit. So you have that kind of unreliable narrator thing happening, like which one of these characters is telling it like it actually happened, which often when I'm talking with friends, or even when I'm talking with my wife and I say, this is what happened, and that, no, it happened like this. So fucking believable that by the end of this, you get the feeling they were a real band and they're real people. It reads like non-fiction, to be perfectly honest with you. And I absolutely recommend this to anyone that's interested in books about like the 1970s music culture. Anyone that's interested in books that are told from a different style, like epistolary fiction. Anyone that wants a music-based romance novel, but it's not really a romance novel. I don't know. It's a fucking weird book to kind of pigeonhole. So I'm not even going to try. I'm just going to say, Daisy Jones and the Six, read it, or fucking go watch the Amazon Prime show. I haven't watched it, but I will. It's on my radar. I've told my wife this is the next show we're watching after the show we are currently watching. There you go. Wow. Got a little choked up there. That surprised me. I got choked up at the end of this, but didn't think I'd do it talking to you guys about it. That was surprising. All right, if you like the video, well, if you enjoyed the video, like it, please. That always helps. Subscribe. I try to put out new content for Plaguelands Media every week. We've got some fantastic projects coming up, including a Kickstarter, which you can find the video on the YouTube channel. We're currently working on what just blows my mind. 2 a kind of not an interactive comic, but an animated comic, I should say, which I've seen what Mr. Ian Van Gamet is doing, and it's fucking awesome. Myself and Dr. Luke Carman are writing a series of short stories based on Ian Van Gamet's art, which, just between you and me, fucking terrifying. So we've got a whole lot of shit in the works, which I will keep you appraised of. But for now, like, subscribe, leave a comment, do all that fucking good stuff. But most importantly, stay safe. Have a fantastic rest of your day. Go listen to some fucking 70s rock and roll, people.